to you about career success over 50. And what I'd like to talk about is exactly where are you in your mind when it thinks about your age. So the first thing I'd like for you to think about is to live your life and forget your age. Our agenda today will be an introduction, addressing the elephant in the room, selling your benefit, which is your age, eliminate age from your resume, targeting your companies, bridge the gap, and some interview tips. Who is Marsha McMahon? I'm a certified career coach and a frequent speaker on career management topics. As I'd mentioned before, I'm the principal of Bridgeline Consulting, a career management firm. My experience has been in human resources as well as an adjunct faculty member. I'm certified and trained in Strength Finders, Strong Interest Inventory, MBTI, DISC assessments. I hold an MBA in Organizational Management and a BA in Organizational Behavior. And best of all, I'm over 50. So let's address the elephant in the room. Our age is our own making. Regardless of what your age is, you want to think about, what does your appearance look like? What is your brand? So we will be asking some clarifying questions to answer each one of these elephant in the room thoughts that are constantly on our minds. So here's a question for you. What is career planning? And do you know how to leverage your experience? Now, I ask these questions to all of my clients, from high school, possible students looking as to where they should go into college, college grads, early professionals, the 22 to 26-year-olds, to the mid-career changers, and for those of us over 50. It doesn't matter what age we are, we still have to think about what our planning is for our career, how we're going to manage it, and really, how do we leverage our expertise? Leveraging expertise and life experiences for maximum impact. What does that mean? That means knowing yourself, knowing your values, taking the time to discover and learn about yourself. Identify your skills. Skills are things that you do very well and you want to continue to use. Then you need to research those career options. Where else can you go with those skill sets that you've identified that you want to continue to use? Most important part is then you need to link your major and your career, and that becomes career planning. Here's a question for anyone of any age who is looking for a career. What questions should I be asking myself? What you want to do when you're managing your career is you want to highlight your relevant talents, not your age. What makes you unique? Again, those are the skill sets that you think about that you want to use forward. What are they? How can you have an impact to that organization that you're looking to get into? What are your strengths? What are you going to offer that organization? Experience is a strength. The experience of having what you know very well. And what motivates and interests you? These are your talents that make you unique regardless of your age. Let's talk about career goals. Why are career goals so important? Here at CTC, we always are asking our clients to put together a plan for progress. And a lot of people push back on that and they go, I don't want to have to do that. Well, if you don't know what your goals are and you're not planning for your progress, how can you move forward? So what exactly are the goals that you want to achieve? Here's some ideas for career goals. Career goals determine which part of your story to highlight and which to minimize. What's a story, you ask? A story is your experience, an experience that you're very proud of, that you accomplished, and you want to continue to use that strength or that talent. And that is how you talk about when you go on an interview. You're discussing that story. And what to minimize. Don't put everything on your resume just because you did everything. You really want to be very specific and think about things that you want to use moving forward.
And about how many years back should you go on your resume at this stage of life, Marcia?
For those of clients who've been with the same company for more than 10 years, what you want to do is break that resume down and just put the last 10 years of the skill sets that you want to continue using. So for example, if you were, your last title is a senior position, maybe before then you were a director, maybe before then you were a manager. So you want to put down, and this is for someone who's been with the company more than 10 years, you want to capture the titles, but you don't need to capture everything that you did under that title. For those of us who have worked in various places, what they're looking for is what have we done in the last 10 years? What is that current accomplishment that we're proud of that we can talk to our story about? How do you go about goal setting? You need to be very specific. You need to measure it. It needs to be attainable. And it needs to be relevant and time-bound. So let me go over those specifically. Goal setting, specific. What do you want to offer that is relevant to where you are applying for a job? So that kind of takes care of the S and the R. You don't want to put down something that you did that the company is not looking for. You want to be able to measure it. And a lot of our clients here at CTC say, I can't measure it. You know, I was just a customer service rep. You know, I was just HR. Only salespeople have measurables. Well, that's not true. You should always try to quantify your story. What is that? Did you meet the goal? Did you meet the customer needs? Did you increase profits? Did you get a return client coming back? So those are the measurables. And the time bound, that's what's relevant to the company you're looking for. So after you have identified those goals and kind of gone through a discovery stage of yourself and what you have to offer, you want to start to think about, what is your brand? What's your essence? What did you attribute to? How do I identify you? How do you position yourself? And for those of you who've been out of having to look for a job, let's say for the last even 5 years, there's a brand is very important now. Basically what it is our reputation. What is your reputation? What is your brand? You know, what value did you bring to an organization? If you cannot explain your brand, that's where you want to go back to that career goal setting, and you want to look at specifically what are you offering that next employer. And then what you think about is how to write that in a summary form as to what your brand is. How can you help someone? So the next slide, what is your brand? Question mark, question mark. Because a lot of people do not even know how to capture that. So let me share with you that you are in control of your personal brand. You determine what that brand is going to be like. You determine your reputation. You identify your brand, and you are the brand because you are the product that you are going out and selling to future employers. So you are the product, therefore you are the brand. And you need to identify exactly what you're going to offer that next employer. Perception is a reality. So it's essential that you carefully cultivate your image. That kind of goes back to the elephant in the room we talked about a little earlier. What is your image? Even if you're older, that does not mean you should not be keeping up with your appearance. That does not mean that you shouldn't have a few clothes, interviewing clothes, informational meeting clothes that are relevant to today's fashion. There's lots of places to go, not to have to spend a lot of money on clothes, but you should be relevant to what today's fashion is, mostly for the field you're going into. What is your image? How do you come across? Do you carry yourself, or are you slumped over? Do you look someone in the eye? That's your image. So that's very, very important. That's the elephant in the room. And just because I'm over 50, which I don't think is old, but some people do, some employers do. But you still don't need to feel and look negatively. You should look very positive. What is your personal brand? It's also defining yourself and present this definition to the public. Remember we talked about what's your story? What is your story? How are you talking to the public about yourself? And when I say the public, I'm talking about also the importance of networking as well. Recap the benefits that come with taking control of your personal brand. I'm sure all of you have had some experience when you felt very accomplished by taking control of a situation and making sure that it's done in a comfortable environment, in a comfortable way that you say, that's me, and that's what your personal brand is. The next thing you want to think about is how to find your niche. And your niche is something that's unique to you. As you can tell that there's a theme to this presentation. And regardless of your age, young, middle, career, or over 50, we all have to know what our niche is. I'm a career coach. Do you know how much competition I have? So I had to identify what my niche is. So if you're going to go out and look for a job, you have to let someone know what your niche is. And how do you do that? Again, this is going through the discovery stage of knowing your vision. What value do you want to bring to an organization? And what are your goals? Again, going back to measuring them, being those SMART goals. Identify your passion and where does it fit. Passion is really what interests you. What motivates you? What type of organization do you want to work for? Does that culture fit for you? If you are an animal lover and you want to work in an environment where there's animals, that's where you should concentrate on looking for a job. You will do very well there because the end result is you are working with something is your passion, your interest, animals. What energizes you rather than what drains you? As someone who's worked in the professional fields for a number of decades, I'm sure you can think of a number of situations when you say, boy, that energized me. I really like doing that type of work. What drains you? What type of work drains you? Don't use it as a niche. Then you keep that out. You have to know your strengths. Strengths are your talents that come naturally. Here at CTC, as well as in my business, I offer Strength Finders to help people identify the 5 strengths of who they are. Then they look and they say, well, where have I applied them? That's the easy part. That helps you identify who you are as a person. Things that you do automatically, nobody has to tell you to do them, and you do them well. What's your style? You are what you are. So what is your style? What type of environment do you like? Do you like teams? Or are you an individual contributor? That's where you want to think about, am I an introvert? Am I an extrovert? Knowing who you are is the most important part of knowing what your niche is going to be, because that is what you're going to offer that next employer. Most important, know what you're not good at. And the easiest way to figure out what your niche is really to start with knowing what you're not good at. So if you put a list together and you start putting down things you don't like, those are easier to get than the things that you are able to identify what you do like. And your list will become very clear as to what's your niche. Why should somebody hire you? That goes back to your story, your goals. Let's talk about selling your age. You're not going to sell your age. You're going to sell your value. What can you bring to an organization? Again, emphasize not what you want the company to do for you, but what you can do for the company. Think about 3 things that you really like doing in your career that you want to continue to do in that next organization. When you do that, write it down. Write your story about a time that you did that, so that when you go to an organization, you're not saying, I'm here, what do you want me to do? What you're saying is, thank you for the interview. I see that you're having this issue, and I've helped solve this type of problem before, and here's how I did it. So it's all about what the value you can bring to an organization. What you want to do is you want to include details of how your value added to past organizations. Do you like working with people? Do you have good communication skills? Tell me about a time that you solved a problem with those communication skills. Is that what that organization is looking for? Again, you're looking to identify skills that you want to use moving forward and finding the companies that are looking for those skill sets. When you do that and you talk about the value that you brought to an organization, you're going to be very confident because you own it. It's your story. List your contributions that exceeded requirements of the job description. Did you increase profits? How did you do that? Maybe you're a salesperson and you increased it, by selling the products. Maybe you increased products from, an HR perspective where you were able to retain good people. How did you improve customer service? Did you increase customer service or did you retain those current clients? What contributions have you done that you're proud of? Now that you've identified and discovered who you are, what you have to offer, and the value that you can bring to an organization, the next step is how to find targeted companies for your job search. Believe it or not, this is the fun part. Because what you want to do is you want to start finding companies that fit your needs. We call them targeting your market. You want to identify the best industries that meet your goal. And the first thing you need to do, because you are in control, is identify the geographic location. How far do you want to commute? Do you want to travel every day? How far? Do you mind being away from home, leaving Monday morning and coming back Friday night? Then you want to think about the size of the company. Is it a startup? Is it a mid-sized company? Is it a nonprofit? Is it going to be academia? Is it going to be a large organization? What type of industries do you want? And really think about those industries that you think that you would really have an interest in. The best thing to do then is find their competitors. That will help you laser your target. Those target markets are your audience. And exactly your audience is who you're talking to and who you're selling yourself to. So let's talk about bridging the gap. Education is no longer something that happens between the ages of 6 to 22, and then it's over. A lot of people used to think, oh, I got my college degree or I got my MBA. Good, I don't have to learn anything anymore. Not in today's market. Experienced workers, they need to step in and take skill development and education into their own hands. Are you currently working in an organization that has offered training that you felt you didn't need? Do you need to look at the skill sets you might not have that you might want to use moving forward? You need to research where you can get those skill set trainings. Again, unfortunately, companies aren't going to do that for us. It is in our hands to control the bridge gap of what's out there and what we don't know. For example, I'm not good at social media. I'm plugging along and I'm learning it as I go, but that's important. How's your LinkedIn profile? Everybody know what a LinkedIn profile is? Something you might want to think about. You can check CTC's website and see that one of our coaches, Howard Fox, actually holds training on LinkedIn. I call it LinkedIn 101 and then LinkedIn 102. He will help you identify what exactly you need to do to have a LinkedIn profile because social media is so important. When we were talking about targeting your market, has anybody used Twitter? Are you aware of Twitter? Are you following certain companies that you're interested in? If not, you might want to set up a Twitter account. Again, bridging the gap is kindergarten to retirement. That gray education for those of us who have gray hair. So think about that. It's lifelong learning. As long as you're working, as long as even if you're only doing volunteering, you got to be learning everything. And that's what helps you stay current with what the employers are looking for. So let's talk about some interview tips for those of us who are over 50. It's going to happen that you're going to be interviewed by someone much younger, and you can expect that, that's going to be stressful because it's common in today's marketplace. I'll give you an example. I was a perfect match on paper for a position in a bank because I worked in a bank. And so when I applied for the bank, I went out on the job interview. And the woman that interviewed me was old enough to be my daughter. I could tell right away we didn't connect. She continued to play with her hair and keep it in her eyes and her head down. Now, I try to keep going with the interview, but I was aware that if that was going to be my boss, even if she did offer me the job, it wouldn't have worked. So you need to be very honest with yourself. Go out and interview. Go out and do informational meetings, because that's what is most important. Let people know the skill set that you have and let them help you find a job, because the younger generation are holding decision-making positions, and some of them may say that they can't work with an older person. That's their problem. Again, you need to go back to that discovery and identify locations and companies that believe in you. And be prepared for questions about your ability to deal with change and how well you adapt to different cultures. And what I mean with ability to change, and this is what's important you want to put on your resume that Nadia had asked me about. You want to show, even if you've been in the same position or worked with the same company, that you were involved with change management, that your company continued to do continuous improvement processes, and you were part of those. So even if you stayed with the same company, you grew and you developed and you were able to adapt to change. And that's something you want to make sure is in your story. And how well do you adapt to different cultures? Again, you look up at the first bullet point. Interviewing with someone much younger than you is a culture. How well did you adapt to that? Did you work with a staff that was much younger than the staff that you ever had before? How well did you do that? Maybe you had a manager who was younger than yourself. How did you get along with that person? Those are cultures. Those are the things you want to be ready to talk about and not be intimidated by change, or that you can't adapt yourself to culture change as well. You've got to test drive your research. Nobody can help you unless you're out there and you're working it. Again, the path isn't always linear. Don't be surprised if you temporarily go backwards in terms of salary and prestige to prepare yourself for your next career. Some of us are realizing that the job and the job title we had no longer exist. The economy is tightening up. Companies are shrinking those. So where else can you go with the skill sets and the strengths that you have to bring in an organization? And be prepared that there's a possibility that you might not get the money that you were making. That kind of goes back to that discovery stage when we talked about the companies and the geographic locations. That is all thinking about, this is what I'm thinking about, now I'm going to go out and research it. Researching it means test driving it, means going out and talking to people, sharing with people your brand, doing informational meetings, going on LinkedIn and joining an organization group because they have a topic that you're very interested in. And then make sure that you're posting to it so that you become known as an expert in that specific topic. That is how you go out and you start to research how your brand looks in the real world. I've also given you a number of resources. The American Association of Community Colleges. Do you know that they have about 50 programs, if not more, for plus 50-year-old people? You might get a discount. You know, good old ARP, which is the next bullet point. ARP gives us a lot of discounts. You might decide after you look to see, well, maybe I need some training on social media. Look to see if these colleges in your community offer these trainings. I love ARP, and I tell people all the time, I'll look for jobs posted on ARP. any organization and any company that is posting their jobs on ARP are automatically saying, I want an older person. Tell me of a 21-year-old who goes to ARP to look for a job. Really. So ARP is the place to go. ARP keeps us current with what's going on. They have interview questions for those of us who are 50 and over. They're telling us what the trends are. These companies that are posting on ARP know that they want an older, experienced worker. We have our own website, and a lot of people don't even realize it. If you don't know what type of job you want, but you have a job title and you're thinking, I think I want to be that job title, ONET Online is a government website. And the government is basically saying that if you're going to be an HR generalist, if you're going to be a salesperson, here are the essential functions of the job, which is called the task. So if you go on ONET Online and you type in a job title that you're thinking of, it's going to basically tell you that what is expected of this job title. It's going to talk about the skill sets, the knowledge for that specific job title, the abilities of that job title. It's going to show you a range of the education. How much education does somebody need in that job title? It's also a great place to go for salary. What is the salary for this job title? What you can do as well, if you go back to the home page of ONET, is on the right-hand side, there's a purple box, and it says, what do I want to do? What do I want to become? Take that survey. There's 60 questions. Based on that survey, it's going to tell you of job titles of people, and you're going to indicate what your gender is, of job titles of people in your gender who have the most interest like you do and where they're at. What are these job titles like? That might be a good place to do a jump start from if you don't even know where to look for a job. What can you possibly do? This is based on, again, your interest and what motivates you. And the way you answer those questions, they're going to come up with a list of job titles that is saying, based on your interests, people in your gender are very motivated and are working in these job titles. So what job title might come up that you didn't even realize? What you're looking for when you look at those are patterns. If you don't know what you have to offer that organization, you'll start to see a pattern. What does each of those job titles ask for? Are they asking for someone strategic, analytical, negotiations, communications? So you'll start to see a pattern. The other resource is Career One Stop. That's with the unemployment office. Again, don't be shy. Go on there. There might be courses, free courses that you can take and might be eligible for to become current so that you can find the job that you are looking for.
Great. Well, thank you for that fantastic information, Marcia. At this point, if you do have any questions, we'd like to invite the attendees to type those into the chat box, and we can have Marcia address those questions. I'll give you just a moment. So Marcia, can you talk a little bit more about strengths and how people can demonstrate those in their resume and in interviews?
Sure. Let me give you an example of myself. One of my strengths is learner. So when I got the results, I thought, How am I going to say learner in my resume? And it was really one of my strengths as far as it helped me identify what I was doing wrong in my job and where I needed to look. I'm a lifelong learner. I don't like to learn everything, and I'm not an expertise in it. But as a learner, having a strength, I like to learn new things. So when I was with this organization, I became proficient in my position, and I started getting restless. When I started looking for another job, and that's why I love Career Transition Center, because we are doing constant changes here. We're doing programming. We do virtual service. We're looking into increasing our social media. I like being busy. I like learning new things. So on my resume, I indicate that, I enjoy, again, change. And I will tell you about a time that I used my change. And in my conversation, I will say, I'm a learner. So I like learning new things. And so if I'm looking for a job similar to where I am at CTC, this environmentally and culturally is a fit for one of my strengths.
And that also kind of gets around the question of being over 50 and are you going to be adaptable, because you're able to demonstrate that you are in fact a lifelong learner, and that's one of the things you've discovered about yourself. So StrengthsFinders is a really good tool for folks over 50, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, it talks about, and I'll go back to the second slide, live your life and forget your age. If you're interested in something, and at our age, we can pick and choose what skill sets we want to use moving forward. And we can find positions in there. We could look for volunteer work. Even if you don't want to work all day, maybe you just want to do volunteer work. You can still use the skill sets. Again, you're in control and saying, here's my brand. Here are the skill sets I want to use moving forward. Here's where I've been accomplished in them. And here's how I can help you. It's not about age.
Okay, and final question is about targeting companies. So could you just elaborate a little bit more about that? Like, how do you start following or targeting a company? That's the question.
What you want to think about is, again, your geographic location. You can go on LinkedIn. You can go into Chamber of Commerce in your own, community, and you can identify companies you want to work for. For example, I have a background in HR. I was an HR manager in manufacturing, in banking, and now I'm in career management, and I was an instructor. When I look back at my career, guess what industry I never want to go back into? And that was manufacturing. So when someone says, gee, Marcia, you can find a job, you're HR, you can go anywhere. I thought, okay, anywhere, but not manufacturing. So knowing your targets and the companies you're interested in really helps you streamline and write that resume based on what those target companies are looking for. And you're going to find a theme to the type of companies you want to work for.
That's great advice. Okay, so without any further questions, I'd like to thank Marcia McMahon for presenting Career Success Over 50. And to each of you who joined us, we thank you so much today. We can provide you with a follow-up copy of this presentation, which will be emailed later in the week, and we hope that you'll join us for our next webinar series in May. Thanks and have a great day.